Hello there, well it's Fiona from Weekly Sewing Bee. Hello. Okay, quite a simple sew today. We're going to make hair ties, scrunchies, yeah? Very easy to do and yeah, great fun, and obviously you can choose the cloth of your choice. So what I have here today is I have a tape measure, I have a pair of scissors. Okay, the string is optional, alright, but I find it so much easier for turning things inside out. A knitting needle to assist with this turning inside out, because it can be a problem. I have probably a fat quarter of fabric, so a small amount as you can get, and some elastic. So what we need, okay, where to start? I believe, okay, I could be wrong, that the best hair ties are the ones that fit round your wrist and that are not too tight. Now I believe that because if you can just put them on your wrist, then you know where they are, and if you put them down then you lose them. So the reason they stay around is because they're on your wrist. So I've just measured my wrist and mine is 6.5 inches. I have my elastic here, and what I want to do is measure out 6.5 inches with a slight pull on it, so I've got this under tension, and then when I've done that I can trim off the right length of elastic. Okay, so I'm going to put that to the side so it's going to be nice and safe. Now I've got my fabric here. So what we're going to do is we are going to cut a 3-inch strip, so to there, and we are going to cut it 10 centimetres long. So I'm going to tidy up the ends first before I cut it, but we're going to cut it to there. Okay, so we've got our strip of fabric. Now you could use anything. I'm going for quite a light sort of satiny polycotton. Now this is probably the harder of the fabrics to sew, and what I would recommend is maybe going for just a polycotton or a cotton till you get used to it. So I've got my strip here and I need to fold it in half. Now it's entirely up to you whether you iron it now or not. You're not going to be able to iron it later, so it depends. If you want a nice soft edge on your scrunchie, then that's fine, don't iron it. And if you want a nice crisp edge, then iron it. Now the advantages of ironing it is obviously it makes it slightly easier to sew. Now I have a sewing machine here and it's all set up to sew in quite a small stitch, so just a normal running stitch. What I'm going to do is I'm going to place the fold of the fabric in there. Now if it was, this is like a double-sided fabric, so we would have the pattern on the inside. Now what I'm doing here is I'm literally putting a couple of stitches on this piece of string. So I've just started it off. It's still not really in shot. Oh, there we are. That's better. Now we've got loads of shadow on it. Okay, so I am going to place the string on the inside of the fabric. Now this is an optional extra, but and maybe it's a fee thing as well. She has a lot of trouble turning them inside out. So what I have now is the right side to the right side with a piece of string in the middle. Okay, now so that I can sew it up at the end, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a few more stitches, and this makes it easier just to attach it to the other end when we've finished. I've lifted my needle and I'm going to place the elastic over the foot. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew this in one go with elastic onto the two bits of fabric. And I wouldn't blame you if you sewed your fabric together and then you sewed your elastic over the top of that line of stitches. I really wouldn't blame you. We're going to do it in one go, and it does make it a bit more complicated. So I now, after I've sewn on the elastic with a couple of stitches, very slowly I'm going to sew along the line of the seam, and each stitch I'm going to make sure that I catch the elastic. Now, when the needle hits the elastic, its natural response is to sort of jump out of the way, whereas most fabric stitches, it will quite happily just go in a straight line. But when it actually hits an elastic strand, then it sort of pings out of the way. So you know, it's every stitch you have to sort of readjust. Okay, so I've now finished sewing the elastic, and I'm just on the 2 layers of fabric, so I'm just going to do a couple more stitches. Okay, so I've got my string and I've got my fabric, which is now twirled because of its under tension on the elastic. I'm going to start off turning the end inside out, and this is the end away from the elastic. And if I have my knitting needle or a pencil or something, then I can assist it by pushing it through. So here we go. I have a knitting needle, and I'm literally just going to push some of this cloth through, pull with the string, and the string is going to be cut off at the end as well. We're not keeping the string in there, and it is literally just an aid to speed this up. So if I pull my thing, pull that outside over the top, and then push with the knitting needle, hopefully it'll spring round the right way. And yeah, you know, some people find this easier than others. I think it must be one of my limitations. So here we go, and it is going slowly. And I find that with the choice of the 3 things, then I have better luck than if I just do it with one type of pulley through thing. I'm just going to tease those ends out. So I've got the raw end with the string, and then the other end I've got another raw end. Okay, so very carefully I'm going to trim off this piece of string because we don't need it now. And I'm going to go as close to the fabric as I can. Okay, so we have the end here, and what I'm going to do is very carefully I'm going to push the 2 raw edges into the end here. So it's not perfect, but there's no raw edges and it's fine. Now, making sure that I've got the seam line of the other end, I'm going to match the seams up and tuck in those raw edges. So now if you do have something pointy, you can just push it in a bit more, and it is sort of practice and it is time and it is luck, okay, don't get me wrong. And there we are. So I've got the fold and I've got the raw edges in as much as possible. I'm going to take it to my sewing machine and just literally 6 stitches sew up that end. So there we are. So 1, 2. What I did there is I just trimmed off as much of these loose bits of thread as I can. The more and close you can get to the actual item, the better it will look. So there we go, I've got one extreme one there. And there we are. So, a scrunchie. ready to wear, and not too uncomfortable on your wrist, and just really easy to sew. And of course you can have it in any colour design you like. Thank you so much for watching. My name's Fiona from Weekly Sewing Bee.